Hello, baretsi ba Westside FM. Ke Nondala Jakate from Extension 12. I'm one of the new ambassadors at GBV, and I'm also a writer. Ke kwala di short stories and poems. Ka leboga.
Listeners, I am Dr. Faith Tobakale Radova, the chair of PPF, Westland Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. I just want to say that my mission is to turn the world upside down by turning ourselves right side up.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Ndiyabulisa abaphulaphuli igama lami ndim ufikile Sondela Ferro. I am the founder of Impumelelo Wings, which is a non-profit organization that is based as Zenzele Informal Settlement, and we're running a library, a community library as Zenzele. I am an artist, and I am the regional ambassador here, gender-based violence and femicide in the Westland under a progressive professionals forum.
Right. They have introduced themselves, and then Becky Zungu is one of the authors, one of the writers of many books. It's going to take about 5 minutes. What is he saying about gender-based violence? I think it's very important and critical before we get into before we can actually have the views of our panelists. And then we've got another panelist, Mike Nkosi, a founder and executive member Men Mending Men. You know, we are going to give him a call, and then so that he can be able to tell us his point of view into that. So,
Pastor Nkosi, my view on what the causes of gender-based violence could be, I think that the causes can be broken down into 4. Number 1, it's brokenness. 2, fatherlessness. 3, bad role modeling. 4, distorted messaging about masculinity and gender stereotypes. Now, if you look at number 1, which is brokenness, obviously it is a fact that we're now living in a very broken society. And by broken, I mean you have people who are just broken, people who are just not happy. Deep down inside, they are hurting for one reason or the other, and to them, it's not difficult to hurt other people because they are carrying this hurt deep on the inside of them. Then number 2, which is fatherlessness, you find obviously these days a lot of boys, they don't have their fathers. Let me just say kids, not only boys, kids. The fathers are absent. Now, in the context of boys, then this has an impact in that there's no guidance that this young man is going to be getting in the home, because for some reason the father is not there, is hurting because he doesn't have a father that he can look up to. Now, on the 3rd one, which is bad role modeling, it could be linked to the other one that I've spoken to of the fatherlessness, but this one you have then young men who look up to a man out there in the society who may appear to have achieved things. They've got big cars, big houses and everything, but their behavior is just bad towards women, towards ladies. And these young boys, these men will then a young men look up to them and think that that behavior is acceptable because people who are seen to be doing well are doing it. Then the fourth one, which is distorted messaging about masculinity or gender stereotypes. You have a situation where some men will actually have this view that because they are men, they are superior to women and they can treat the women just as they please. So for us to then address gender-based violence, resolve it, we need to deal with these root causes. What is causing people to be broken? What has broken them? How do you resolve that? The fathers are absent. How do you deal with that? Obviously, if the father is not there, he's not there. But we can then find role models for these boys, for these young men who find themselves without their fathers next to them, guiding them. So we can then have the uncles pitching in to play the role of the father. And on the role modeling, we actually have to educate. We have to find ways and means of educating our young boys from a tender age as to what is unacceptable behavior. The men they see next door could be driving a flashy car, seem to be doing well, but they must be able to identify the bad behavior from those men that they look up to say that treatment of women is not acceptable, regardless of who's doing it, even if it's someone they see as having achieved much in life. Then on the messaging, it's also about just changing the message. We have to use all platforms available to educate young boys to say, just because you are a male, it does not make you better than your female counterpart. There has to be respect. You have to love and respect the females and treat them with dignity. And then when you are amongst your friends, your peers who are saying wrong things, perpetuating this gender superiority, the young boys have to be, we constantly give them this message to say, confront your friends who are having that kind of attitude towards women. So in a nutshell, we basically have to go back to Ubuntu. How do you treat your fellow human being? That's it from me, Pastor Nkosi.
Yes, that is Mr. Zungu, who was sharing his opinion pertaining to gender-based violence and also his researches. So I guess you have heard him. Westside FM, Risimula Yalo Kanyarnaya tonight, gender-based violence. Remember that it's a continuation, what we spoke about last week. And then I promise you, listeners, to say that we are going to come again, and then we are going to come with more information, and then also to get other people's opinion pertaining to that and so forth. So, but today, it's not going to be the end of it, but we are going to continue with it, readdress this issue of gender-based violence in a different way, so that it can get to the T. Because of basically we're looking at how can we make an awareness, an education to the listeners, to everybody in our community, so that they can learn and then be able to improve their life and not to be in a state whereby they abuse their partners or anyone that is closer to them, especially the women and children, right? So ke kopa go ibula ke bule ka moruti ka doctor doctor, based on what we spoke last week, what is the response from the people that actually were listening, especially from the organization?
From the organization, there have been several responses, but the emphasis was on the solution.
Okay.
What can be the solution? That after defining the gender-based violence, what it is, there must be an answer to this. The solution, as far as the victim is concerned, this time we're talking about our women in general, and also even the perpetrators. What is the solution? And one of the things that were raised is the fact that, one, there is a need focusing upon our children.
Okay.
That in the future, because right now there is still this big gap where you find that we encourage our children to reach where they become independent. When imagine a lady who is independent financially, she doesn't need a man to buy a car for her. She doesn't need a man to buy a rent, to pay a rent for her, or to buy, and she can buy all those things for herself. Now, when it comes to a relationship, she comes into a relationship not because of the physical needs that drives her, and then she falls in love for the sake of love. And the reason why we looked upon this is because many times victims don't walk away from being victimized, and then, or at the time when they are supposed to walk away, simply because of the needs they have. They depend upon the perpetrator. They depend upon financially and otherwise. Some don't see themselves living without this particular person. And so now, when we look now at our children, at the future of our children, it is better for us to empower our children to have that self-drive so that they be able to be self-sufficient, and then to empower them. Just allow me, though we are not, I'm not representing a church, so to say, but I wrote something, and then to inspire the whole world to accept and to claim the contents of the last will of Jesus Christ and its authority alone for the restoration and development, just mark my words there, for the restoration and development of the inward drive for self-fulfillment. When we begin to empower the people, empower our children, empower our ladies, empower our women, that they have this inward self-drive for self-fulfillment. Self is self-empowerment. You educate yourself. You begin to go for skills. You begin to gather all those things that can help you to be able not to depend upon a man. And so, but many of our ladies right now, maybe over 60%, are not independent. They depend upon men. They depend upon others for their survival. And because of this, now there are men who make use of this, take advantage of that situation, and begin to be oppressive, begin to be abusive, and victimizing, and then the ladies. So this is what I'm trying to say, that it's one of the things that we thought this will help, and then as far as the gender-based violence is concerned in the future, to begin this effort of empowering our women to be independent. And so, but we don't ignore those who are already grown up, that they can be able to be independent. They can be able to free themselves and then from the oppression, simply because a person is having money and then he can wield the power. And I heard something today, though I won't even mention the names involved, but I was questioning the victim of gender-based violence and about her case. How is the case going? She said to me that she was approached and then by guys on a higher level, including those who are running our courts, and she was asked to sit down and then with the perpetrator, she should accept the money for the damage, that it be settled outside the court. And when I heard that, I asked her, what is your decision? She said, Doc, I don't want to do that. And I said, you are right, because if you accept that, for an example, if you go for that settlement, then we are going to say that you were in it for the sake of the money of the guy. Why not allow the court, you proceed with the whole thing until and then justice is done. When justice is done, if there be any claim that needs to be done, it can be done after justice has been done. But now look at the power. The guy is saving the money, and then he wants to settle outside the court, and then but at the same time he claims that he didn't abuse, he didn't assault, he didn't do anything to the victim.
You spoke earlier, you touched the point of spirituality, like you quoted the scripture, right? Now a question comes, it might be a bit rough, but a question comes, do the churches have a program for gender-based violence victims, or anything to do with home affairs? Let me put it in general, home affairs, because of it can be gender-based violence, it can be abuse, it can be substance abuse, it can be any type of violating someone's rights. Let me put it that way, right? Did the churches have such programs, or it's now that the churches are catching a wake up and that they become now relevant to the community? Or what was the state of the church?
You see, I may not generalize when it comes to the state of the church, but it's rare when you hear the church having a program of gender-based violence. Many times the church is reactionary, but there might be a church or two that might be doing something about it.
Okay.
But by and large, the church as a body of Christ becomes a reactionary. They react whenever a problem is there. And for an example, there was an issue that I put on one of the WhatsApp groups concerning the victim. And the victim was so touched by what happened in her life, and then in the hands of a servant or a man of the cloth, that she didn't even see it necessary that the tithe must be mentioned, because when the tithe is released, as many claim, it is going to the hands of men of God. Okay. Why should I release my tithe to the very same people who are abusive? But now, the core of the message that I was putting there was not concerning the tithe, was concerning the gender-based violence, and then what we are doing about it as men of God and women of God. And so that reaction to me meant that we don't have a program of our own in dealing with the gender-based violence, but we are protective of what we have. And it's high time for the church to speak, to deal with it. Doesn't matter whether a person is a bishop or an apostle, whatever that he has attained, or he is saving monies. But the issue is gender-based violence needs to be confronted, because the Bible does confront gender-based violence. But years ago, when I was still the secretary of a fraternal, and then here in Kagiso, we covered even Mogale City and other areas. It was many years ago. And then working with Dr. Joe Mabuela, and also the pastor of Grace Bible Church, and other people that we were working with, and even the leader of this regeneration who passed away, moral regeneration who passed away. During that time, I used to personally attend court cases, and they will involve me in helping the victims before they can even appear in the court.
Okay.
But the reason why they appeal to us to come in, it is because many preachers, abefundisi abaningi, that we invited, they will simply lay hands, pray for the person, cast out demons, and they say, okay, wamanje, everything will be all right.
Okay.
Yet counseling was needed.
The pastor was Ref Den Mohase.
Dan Mohasi. In fact, then that's the man that many times, and then I would attend even the mayoral committees with him and other structures. And then when we were dealing with the community, we were hands-on even in terms of helping the people who were where there was family violence, and then and many other things.
Okay.
And we even tried to shelter some people and then shelter the victims before. When we were dealing with the perpetrators. But it was just a drop. It wasn't because that's what the church was doing. So I think the church, we need to have a program of our own. We need even to have a syllabus, because we are looking at something which has been going on for generations. Gender-based violence, simply because the word is becoming commonplace or popular now, it has been there for many generations. In our culture, patriarchy, it doesn't matter the race, it has been there.
Okay.
And so it is time we deal with this positively. In fact, we even talk in terms of we identify what it is and the root problem, the roots of these contributing factors towards even the gender-based violence. Then we'll be able to come up with solutions and answers.
Right. Thank you very much, Doctor. You were actually elaborating from the question that I asked you, and then we have somebody that we still have to call. That is Michael Mkonto, chief executive of the what we call the organization called Men Mending Men. Right. And then I have here, we have Figile as well, and we also have a Ya Lady. She calls herself Ya Lady. I don't know what Ya Lady is, but Ya Lady. Right. Doctor?
Can I say something?
Yes.
I just wanted to say, when she introduced herself, she said she is new in terms of gender-based violence as an ambassador. And then, but she forgot to say as an ambassador, and then under PPF Westside.
Hey, Doctor. she Doctor wants to emphasize the issue of PPF actually has taken this to the top.
Progressive
Professional Forum has taken to the top to say, you know what, we are considering to attack or confront or to deal face to face with the gender-based violence.
My apologies there.
All right. Yes, Ya Lady. My question in particular: did you experience gender-based violence?
Yes, I did. I did experience gender-based violence, and for years.
For years.
For many years.
Okay.
For many years, I think it started 2007. Until such time, to 2011, I decided to walk away because of it was too much. And then I reported the cases, go police station, which I didn't get any help. And then the last incident in a relationship, and that's when I was experiencing the violence. It was 2011 because we were both hospitalized, Colorado Hospital.
Both,
yes.
You and the
partner. Yes, the partner. Yes. Because I was trying to defend myself because he's been doing that for many years.
Okay.
And I said, no, that's enough. I can't take this anymore. And then na ga ka bitsa mapodisa. Ngwana wa gago ngwanyana o motona ke na bitsa mapodisa a phone because it was Nali and my partner, lengwana wa ka lengwana wa gagwe, which is I'm not the mother but he's the father to the child. And then ngwana bitsa mapodisa because it was worse. And then na alwana le nna he ana khona go lwana le nna fela gore pula yana ka jeko it's raining. You want to go out, and then o tla ba ntwa ntsa ntwe o na sa lwantse dilo tse di serious a khona go lwantshetsa gore initially he was self-employed. Ga sa thola tšhelete kwa tswang ko teng, customer ya ge mo kwatisitse, and then o tlo ntse enge go ntlong go nna. So that's the life I left with the partner for, I think I met him 2004, and then he started abusing me from 2007 until 2011 when I said enough is enough, and I walk away.
But what changed? 3 years, everything was fine, normal, everything was okay, and then just after 3 years.
After that's when things started changing.
Right.
Because I think financially, a bit difficult for both of us. I was working, he was self-employed. And then, days, and then days, like physically, and sometimes even emotionally, when how next without me.
Yo.
And then he's 15 years of age, but usually can participate this, and then he's just been stubborn and overtali. So 2011 I walked away, and for me it was fortunate because I decided to walk away. Abuser back then until 2011 I said, no man, this is not the way I want to be, and this is not the life I want to live. And then Katamaya. But still, Hazanga stop at 2011. Every time he will still pick a fight for but he was not even maintaining the child. Maybe 1 minute later, somewhere. If something you're collecting and then and then I will not even wish it to anyone else because even because I think it's because I self-counseled myself. I didn't attend any counseling session. Yes, I didn't. I did it all by myself.
Lack of knowledge, or maybe you were not interested, or what transpired?
I think it was lack of knowledge. I think I was not well informed maybe by then.
But do you think you are healed? You are okay?
I'm okay, yes, but there are those days still sometimes something like life if maybe so, but I find rehabilitation through my writing mostly because I'm an introvert in most cases, and I don't even have friends. My circle is very, very, very small.
Sure.
Yes.
All right. We have a couple of questions here, and then that I would like. Okay, the comments. In fact, the comments. Tepo from Slogoville says here, Ori, okay, is watching, very interesting topic, and then Dr. Joe Mabuela also was actually given the name of Pastor Mkhase, and then Tepo said, okay, talks about the interest of the show, and then live stream as well on Facebook. It says, okay, Lesejo says, I agree with Doctor as he is said GBV is not racial but affects all, and then gender-based violence, very touching subject. That's Tepo and Dovu from Slogoville. And Dr. Joe Mabuela says, how do we confront church-based GBV where pastors or leaders are the perpetrators? GBV perpetrated by law enforcers, police, traffic cops, etc. on their spouses, and then police are some of the most brutal abusers of partners in its effect. And then Lesejo says, Lesejo Lokoto says, true Tsepo and true Tsepo Ndovo, and we must bear in mind that all can be victims, including men. Ne? And then Pastor Mubela says those questions are hard-hitting, right? It's actually adding on the questions, but they are hard-hitting because they are caused by people that you don't think they should be doing that. And then Tepo says this is a reality and not a fantasy. Let's come with a solution to our dilemma that we face. It says we're facing a dilemma, and that's the true fact. Right, Fikile, maybe you want to say something on before we get into, because there's somebody that I still have to give you a call. From your side, you've been here last week. You spoke about this. What was the response? How do people? How did you feel after that and stuff like that? I think I need to get that feedback. If this is one of the remedies, because of there can be a different remedies in terms of dealing with certain subjects.
I must acknowledge that kunesidingo esikhulu for creating awareness, not only creating awareness, but the whole society changing and adapting to a new way of living. And ndifuna ukugxininisa kakhulu from what Dr. Faith was saying, especially for us women. He stressed the point yokuthi we are prone to be financially dependent. But from a survivor's point of view, it's not only financial dependency, it's also emotionally being dependent on the partner. And I would say that is caused by a low self-esteem, because if you don't see yourself as beautiful, you will be dependent. And psychologically, sometimes being dependent on another person. So I want to stress the point that Doctor has just mentioned, that it's very important as women, even including males, to be independent, not only financially but emotionally and psychologically, spiritually as well. Because we've seen a lot of abuse happening in churches. The financial abuse that is happening in churches through the preaching tithe, and abantu abaninzi who are vulnerable to these are people who are dependent on ministers of the word. So even spiritually, as individuals, we need to be independent. Umntu wazi amandla akho. Know that you do not need anyone, to as a gateway to your spirituality. You don't need anyone to make you feel better about yourself or to make you feel beautiful or complete. And I would say also that now I'm saying these things as a survivor of domestic violence, as I shared with the listeners last week, that I was sexually assaulted by my own biological father. And now abuse ingenye indlela besisathetha ukuthi it affects the whole family system. Because my father was unhealthy, he transferred the unhealthiness to me. And had I not stood up and dealt with the unhealthiness that I experienced as a child, ibizothelela abantwana bami, and kuba the repeat of that vicious cycle. I believe that in fighting GBV, all of us, we need to be aware, and all of us, we need to change. Kuqale from the way ungumama endlini uthetha nabantwana bakho ngikhona, abantwana bamantombazana. And most of the time, because abazali are in the upper position, they have a lot of control over abantwana babo. And thina funeka singabazali siqale sibe healthy and teach our children how to be themselves, how to be free, because abuse is all about control. You'll find that in other families, nangu mamazala ufake isandla kakhulu, ulawula umtshato, and eventually the marriage will dissolve. So wena ungumama you need ukuthi uguquke wena, uguquke the way uthetha nabantwana bakho ngakhona. Mawuqhele ukuthi emntaneni hayi wena, how do you expect ukuthi an outsider makethi hayi wena emntaneni umntana uzakhona ukuthi ajump ukuthi no, but andiqhelanga ukuthi kuthethwe namso. And even nabotata, all of us, we need to change, you know, and especially for the younger generations, because we are the role models, and they become whatever that we teach them to be from a very young age. If ungumzali, you exert a lot of control over umntana seke uyaqhela, and even noba seke semtshatweni se relationship elawuliwa yindlela kayiqhelileyo, it's the only way normal for yena. And personally, I feel there's a lot to be done to overcome gender-based violence.
Okay. Ontiki Kumalo is actually listening and watching on Facebook Live now, and she says, "Sorry, Sisi, I love you." And then I think she says to both of you, and says, "Let's teach our children to be able to stand on their own. We support you, Figile. Let's fight this together." Right, and I think it's the words of encouragement on whatever that transpired. Muritorno Westside FM time now, it is 21 minutes after 8 o'clock. It is the 22nd of the 9th month, 2020. We will definitely be coming back. A break. I need to call Michael Mkonto from Men Mending Men, and then to give him a 10 minutes of presentation of what are they doing in their organization, you know, Michael Mkonto. And then from there, we will definitely be coming to summarize. Now we need to do direction. Where are we going from here? Because through this, something can be done and something can impact our community, and we need to be to proper plan it. I know pastors are listening to me. I know there are social workers that are listening to me. Government people are listening to me, and people around the world are listening to the show now. And then probably they will have something they will want to do something because of this. It's a serious issue of gender-based violence. Right?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you for having me.
Okay, we are blessed to have you, and then we think we bless the Lord for the opportunity that you have graced us with, so that we can be able to talk to you about your organization and what are you doing. As you are aware, we are having a very serious issue in our community and also in our society pertaining to the gender-based violence. Women are dying on daily basis, and then there's so many violence at domestically at home, and then there's just a lot of things that are happening. So Luna, we know there have been a lot of organizations that are actually protecting women and also focusing on girl child and stuff. So you guys have decided to do a man mending men. So maybe firstly tell us who's Michael Mkonto, and then before we can get into the organization.
I am Mike Mkonto. I'm the founder of Men Mending Men. We are an organization that predominantly exists, and rightfully so, to really confront and educate our fellow men of South Africa about the issue of abuse and violence towards women and children through preventative and proactive intervention programs, along with partnerships from South African law enforcement agencies, child protection units, and other stakeholders.
Okay, where are you based?
We, luckily in this instance, we are from Mohali City. We are based in Mohali City. However, we have extended our footprint around Joburg as a metropolitan, but also Gauteng as a province. Also, we have been quite fortunate to have been able to partner with stakeholders such as corporates like Transnet. Obviously, also we've had quite interest from the individual of the office of the Deputy Minister of Social Development. We've also have partnered with SANEC, South African National Aid Council,
through the work of Dr. Mbulelo Jasi, who's the head of cooperative governance there. And so we have been fortunate enough to be able to expand our footprint across the province. However, as young as we are as an organization, however, I guess our mandate has been such compelling that we found interest in the corporate and provincial and national government.
So what inspired you, Michael, to say now we are going to focus on men and not girl child, not women?
But I think for the most part, I've been listening to also my favorite panelists in the studio there. For the most part, we have catered for the victims of gender-based violence, and not so much so for the perpetrators thereof. And I think for the longest time we've dealt with the effects of the issue, not the cause of the issue. And I think it is about time that we focus on the perpetrators and we pay enough attention and put enough resources around helping the men in preventing the scourge and breaking the wheel of violence against women and children. Our objective is quite, to focus and mainly to encourage behavioral change and accountability on the part of South African men in caring and stopping the abuse of women and children, to introduce and implement programs to educate and improve social behavior of men and boys to become chartered members of society.
Okay. Do you have specific programs that you're running with men? And then can you share a bit about the contents thereof?
Yes, we do. We've got quite a few programs. I'll just highlight 5 for now.
Okay.
For the sake of time. We've got what you call the CIP program, which stands for Couple Intervention Program. Now, in this program, we take a lead from victims and all perpetrators of the said abuse in that case, who come to us or contact us seeking help, and we refer those to our collaborative partners in organizations such as SAPS, clinical psychologists we're partners with, therapists and religious houses that we're partners with. And obviously, depending on the nature of the incident, we also do follow-up meetings and sessions with them, post-referrals, to ensure that a full support system of healing and rehabilitation is encouraged. And also, just to make sure that we have a sustainable, healthy relationship with the beneficiaries we refer. And we also have another program, which is mainly, I would say, similar to other stakeholders that we would have. And I think if I listen to figure it earlier, it's also a program that should be totally benefiting from us, or probably if she came from other stakeholders as well. It's called Victim Support Program. This program exists to offer support to the victims of gender-based violence. Also through collaborative means with other stakeholders like NGOs to prevent secondary victimization. And we also have a victim-dedicated page on our website where victims can go onto our website, find as much information as they need, also to see whether we can report form of abuse. Because I think it is important that we don't generalize the GBV, as we call it, as a blanket statement. But the GBV, everybody is going about GBV. But we need to understand that it is a form of abuse. And I think first and foremost, before we can even really start formulating programs to support such individuals, we need to understand what is it that they are being abused of, the form of abuse they are suffering. Because I think abuse is about the question of power and control. I mean, you have emotional abuse, you've got financial abuse, you've got partner-to-partner abuse, and you've got intimate, you've got domestic violence abuse, you've got intimate partner abuse. So it differs, and I think we need to understand what it is that they're going through before we can formulate solutions that seeks to help them. And I think we only identify abuse when it becomes physical. And by that time, it is actually at the last portion of it where people have actually been endured, verbal abuse and to such an extent an emotional abuse. By the time it gets physical, you'd find that the victim has long lost their will to fight, or if anything, they've been enduring abuse for such a time. So it is for that reason that also we have a program called Mental and Emotional Wellness Program, which also seeks to help our victims, but predominantly various programs and partnering with different stakeholders in helping men in our communities address their underlying shortcomings. This could be in the form of anger management issues, alcohol abuse, and such inherited issues that you'd find in the society, and also help them get better. Because I think it is important that we need to focus on the cause thereof, because for the longest time we've been giving enough attention, as necessary as it is, to victims. However, the cycle will not stop, because I think we're not dealing with the cause of abuse, which in this case is the men that continuously abuse women and children. And I think it also, it's the mindset. And I think I listened to Dr. Said earlier on, who I found key words that he used is that our women. And I think it's a sense of entitlement. It says that we need to, empower our women. And I think we don't own the women in the country. We own the partners we have and the wives we share the marriages with. It is the women in our country, not our women. Because I think by empowering, we're having an outlook that says, it's like saying, you know what, raise your walls up, make sure you've got enough security. We're not saying let's deal with crime, we're saying let's protect ourselves better. It's like having a situation where you've got a traffic cop who finds a taxi on the road that's unroadworthy, and they take off, in fact, the passengers put them in another taxi, and they don't take the taxi off the road. So essentially what we're doing is we're saying let's empower women, and then we're empowering these women, but we're not taking the men out of the system in which we perpetuate and we recycle gender-based violence, because we don't necessarily deal with the cause. Essentially what we do is we're recycling it by taking the women into shelter, into space of safety, and we're not dealing with the men that are causing the form of violence against us. Like in this case, I would assume that Sigile managed to leave her relationship, and we thank God that she did so while alive, even though she has endured so much of the abuse that she has. But in this case, whoever person that will eventually find herself in former Sigile's partner, in a relationship with the partner that Sigile used to be in, she is most highly likely to be in the very same situation. And I think in this case, it's pretty much what we see going on with the recycling of gender-based violence.
Okay. Do you think, I'm going to give maybe my panelists to ask maybe a question or two, but do you think the way we do an awareness in our society and community, does it make an impact in our community?
Well, it depends on what sort of awareness we deal with. And I think sometimes we're dealing with awareness in different ways, because I think we need to focus what we call LSM. And I think different communities and demographics require different form of programs.
Okay.
And I think that it can't be a one-size-fits-all type of approach, because I think what we deal with in a different sector of society might not necessarily affect different sector of society, or will not be necessarily effective at a different sector of society. That is why at the moment, as an organization, we have a campaign running, which we believe that it is necessary, and it's something that we've also noticed that it happens a lot, especially when it comes to partner rape or sexual violence against women. It is the current campaign that we've got running, and I'll share with you why it's important. The campaign. It's also to address the question you asked. We call this campaign "Notice the Moment." The reason we named it that, or we termed it that, is so that we're teaching or encouraging men to notice what you call active consent or ongoing consent, especially when you are involved in intimate relationship with your partner.
Okay.
This highlights the importance of the presence of mind on the part of men when they're in a relationship or a friendship or sharing any intimate space with another person. I'll give you an example of what I mean by that, is because sometimes we've picked up through research and through observation, trips that we've made in hospitals, in a department called Crisis Center, that most partner-to-partner rape happens because men do not understand or overlook and continuously would violate what you call active or ongoing consent, i.e., you have a partner that agrees to get into go and then obviously in the middle of that session, if that partner, i.e. a woman, is entitled, rightfully so, to change their mind, and most men wouldn't allow that to happen. Now, the reason either they would not allow that to happen, or they would knowingly continue because of they'll take that from the original consent that would have had for somebody who would have gone home with them that night, would have agreed to get into bed with them that night. That it was for that reason at 2 a.m. they can't change their mind and say, no, I don't want to do this anymore. So it's a question of a side of men. It's a question of a demographic of men that we need to focus to say, what programs do we derive and formulate to educate what sort of, I would say, demographic of men, and are we looking at taverns? Are we looking at educated people? Are we looking at non-educated? But educated doesn't mean in any way to look down at any form of society.
Yeah.
I think it's a question of having to understand what is consent. How much does it go? How far does it go? When is it no longer consensual? And those type of things. So it's a question of, you asked earlier, are the programs working? Well, it depends on what sort of programs are we formulating to address what sort of issue in the society. So I think it can never be a one-size-fits-all. We're going to have to find a way to formulate programs that deal with societal issues in different demographics. And
Oh, no, that's fantastic. Let me give my panelists to maybe if anyone has a question that they can ask you.
I thank you very much, Mike, for what you shared.
yes.
And I just want to understand clearly what you said.
Yes.
You mentioned that the main focus right now is upon women, and that enough resources have been used and then focusing upon the victims, and it's high time that such be done also to men. There are enough resources that have been spent to the victims. Did I understand you clearly? Is that what you meant?
By enough, I don't mean we don't need any more. By enough, I mean that as much as we are doing a lot, and we should continue to do so, to give shelter and support to the victims of gender-based violence. I think equally so, we should also focus on the cause and the perpetrators thereof, victims. Who creates, or obviously who at the end of the day are, as a result, giving us victims of gender-based violence. And I think if we focus on the cause, then we might better help reduce the effect.
Then Fikile.
Okay, evening, good night. Umbuzo nje, out of curiosity, are the men willing to get help to be rehabilitated?
Sorry, just repeat that. I didn't get that clearly.
Okay, my question is, are the men willing, the perpetrators, are they willing to be assisted, to be rehabilitated?
Well, willing is quite an open statement. We have actually had fortunate circumstances where people would have raised their hands and said that I would be part of a program or be referred to, because and luckily enough we're doing that through our website, because we encourage anonymity, because I think the stigmatization is one thing that deter men to raise their hands and say I need help, because I think we as men, there's this masculinity that we put out there that often are in the way of us really seeking and finding help that we need to better leading our families with love and encourage, and instead of fear and dominance. So are they willing? Yes, they are, but they're not as forthcoming as we hoped they would have been. And we hope that in the next coming months, with the partnerships that we gradually are making in big corporates, and hopefully soon with the provincial and national government, we can have enough outreach programs that we can reach as many men as possible, so that we can have a dialogue prior to So are they forthcoming? Yes. Would it be better? We certainly agree and hope that we would reach as much as we can, because I think the number of victims far outweighs the number of perpetrators. You find that you have one perpetrator who's got one or two or three victims, either by virtue of relationship or by virtue of community association, or in this case, religious undertaking. If it's a pastor in a church, the victims will be more than one. If it's an individual that is involved with more than one partner, the victims will be more than one. So it is important that we feel that often, if we can get hold and be able to help one or two men, essentially we've seen a ratio of 6 or 7 victims, because the ratio is that much.
All right. Are you answered, Sigile? All right. Do you have a question?
It's not a question specifically. Batho ba sebetsang ka di-issues tsena tse di concernang GBV are ba trained gore ba be friendly to the victims, because in most cases re tshaba go reporta because of how the way re treatwang ka teng ko di, especially for starter re sa ga re starter re reporta re ya pele ko police station akere, but the way ba re treatwang ka teng as the victims ga, or maybe it's because nna ke khale ke reportile khale back then ke setseng gona no, but I think they have to be trained to gore ba dila yang le di so that le rena re sa tshaba, because once o tshaba go reporta gore ba tlo reng, then it means o tlo nna for no ga ke na solution, and then o nne for until go nna late for wena ke.
Yes. And I'm glad you brought that up. I don't know if maybe you're aware, this afternoon the Minister of Police was speaking, and I was pleased to such an extent to see our district, Mohale City, or any portion of our district is not in the top 30 GBV hotspots. And I think it's not necessarily that we don't have any victims, i.e. Fiji in the studio and many other women who really need help. But one of the things that he said, that I'm bringing that up, is that they should be in the 30 GBV hotspots that were mentioned today, and all over every police station in the country should be a dedicated desk with trained individuals who will be trained in handling victims who come to report matters that pertain to gender-based violence or femicide. We know that ourselves, along with many other stakeholders and organizations, secondary victimization has been an issue that victims of gender-based violence have long raised. That unfortunately we don't have enough trained individuals, especially in the form of police officers, who can with the sensitivity that this issue deserves, take your case and obviously be able to help you in time and without secondary victimization. So we're hoping that with the statement put out by the Minister of Police today, certainly will spark a form of agency in terms of our police station being well equipped for Katusa, but what I'm reporting the case. Because I think to such an extent it has been one of the deterring factors, how police station, because of you already anticipate the treatment you will receive. And it's unfortunate because I think sometimes you find people who often in that case wouldn't receive you in a way that you wish, especially in such sensitive issues. But I think to round that off, with the message that was sent out today, when they announced the top 30 TV hotspots, was that they need to be dedicated, desks at police stations to help people or victims of gender-based violence. We are hoping that this will materialize, and indeed when next time we go into this police station to actually check if it is and it will be the case. And hopefully this will encourage most victims, especially those who really, really need help urgently, who have been sitting at home afraid for secondary victimization, to know that there's help out there, and there are people who are trained, who will welcome them and who will assist them with the sensitivity that the nature of the matter deserves. And I hope that helps clarify the question.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mike, for also coming through to us and then giving us this information. We really appreciate that. And then I'm just going to give each and every member of the panel to say if they are willing to give up their numbers and whatever for the listeners that are listening out there, because probably I know for the fact that even if we can say yes, what are they perpetrators? I know that there are fathers that are being perpetrators, they are not aware that they are perpetrators, and then also they need help. And to those that actually saying, no, we are aware, but we don't know where to go to. Probably in this session, this show will actually enlighten some of them to say, you can go to certain individuals if you have such a problem. So let me start with you, Mike. If anybody wants to be in contact with the organization, what should they do? Who do they talk to? With the numbers, if there is?
Yes. Just before I say, I just wanted to just also add on to what you just said about the Nigeria. And I think it is important. Directly from my Renewal Ministry Fellowship, we have a men's ministry where we often would say that it starts with me. And when we say that, we say that lead by example. So I think it is important that in our families we do what we'd like to see happen. If in terms of dominating, what we do then is we lead. If you want something done in your household, you do it yourself. You show how your family should be done. You don't force them. You don't intimidate them. You don't coerce them into doing that. You lead by example, but most importantly, you lead with love. So we encourage that, but more than anything else, we are available, and we are available especially for men. And I need to stress that because we unapologetically confront men, but not only we don't bash. We seek to intervene and to help. And if you know that you've got a habit of abusing your wife in any way, and we are not here to judge. And I need to say this because we prescribe to the Protection of Personal Information Act, and therefore we are obliged by the Act to keep you anonymous and help in that way. But we are not a haven for criminals. We are not to protect people from criminal activities. We're here to help you. You're more than welcome to go to our website. It's www.mendingmen.co.za. You can go into there. There's enough information to help you understand what abuse is, if you are being abused, and if you are an abuser. And I think it is important that we focus on both sides, because I think our attention is mostly on helping men to keep, and if anything, help them stop abusing our fellow women and children. So we are on the website. We also are on social platforms. On Twitter, it is Men SA, that's the handle, and the handle on Instagram is the same as Twitter. It's also Men SA, and we also are available on Facebook. You're more than welcome to say, whatever that bothers you, we'll be able to get in touch with you and refer you to our collaborative partners, and you can get help. And I think it's important that we stress this out, that we are here to help you, not to hide you from the law, because I think that's where the stage of the abuse is. You certainly deserve the full might of the law. But in this case, if you realize that you need help, or maybe if you're a lady out there and you realize your partner needs help, please get in contact with us. We'll certainly do our best to help both of you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mike. Fikile?
Okay, AME number 076 551 5567. I'm also on Facebook under handle Impumelelo Wings, and there is a page ka Fikile Sondela, even on Instagram at Sondela Fikile, even on Twitter at Sondela Fikile.
Right.